Welcome to Neon Cobra. Let's kick into it. At the top, I'll ask you again if you love these how-to videos to like and subscribe. I'm always dropping new content that'll help you manage your Azure environments. So I've said this before, but this will likely be a quick one, but I do get asked this question quite a bit. We're going to talk about attaching new disks and resizing disks on virtual machines. So with that, let's kick right over to the actual window itself. So as you're going to see, we are going to be in my Azure environment and we are going to search for a virtual machine. Now, there are a couple of ways you can add disks to a virtual machine. You can do it natively within the virtual machine itself, as far as the virtual machine panel, and I'll show you that. We'll click into one of the VMs in question, and you're going to want to expand and then search for disks. This is going to show you what's currently attached. Your OS disks are generally at the top, so that's where you're going to see things like, different, like your named OS disks as an example. So generally when you create a virtual machine, it comes with an operating system disk and it names it based on what the actual name of the system is. This can be very helpful because it does show when it was created as well. So there's your timestamp. So if you're trying to track maybe restored disks and things like that and what you're attaching to a VM, you can actually do that and you can swap OS disks in and out. So you can do, versioning and snapshot control, which is a nice little way. Now, when you're attaching OS disks, it is going to reset the VM. Usually it'll probably request you shut the VM down first. And I usually recommend that just to get a safe shutdown, but it cannot do that live. Obviously, you would reset the OS. And data disks, on the other hand, can be added after while the VM is on. Now, I still recommend powering it down just in case, right? Especially if you're doing anything like software striping and things like that, or software raids within Windows as an example, which is also an option, but that's a video for another time. So first way you can add a disk is you can create and attach a new disk. So from within the disk panel, you choose create and attach disk, and it's going to be straightforward. You call it test disk, and then I'll just enumerate just quickly. You choose your type. It's generally going to recommend premium SSD to start. Hopefully you've sized this out based on the type of workload. So let's just say we're doing some archival storage. So let's do, a quick 32 gig drive there. You'll generally want to keep everything else. The platform managed keys is quick and easy within, but if you have your own kind of encrypted key vaults or HSM as an example that you want to leverage, you could actually put those in there instead and keep your encryption keys outside. For most use cases, the platform managed keys are where you want to be. And then your host caching, I generally leave that read only, but if you do want to make some adjustments to that, this is where you can do your read writes. So when you choose apply, this disk will get created and automatically attached to the virtual machine. Now, this will attach it to the VM, but you still have to go into your computer manager and disk management to assign it a drive letter and, make sure you format it correctly. So once this is done, you'll see that refresh. Now, additionally, you can also attach existing disks, and this is fairly straightforward. You would come in here and you would see any available disks that you have pre-provisioned. This could be a recovered drive, maybe a disk that was orphaned and you want to find out what's on it. You click on that. It adds it in with all the preset information. You choose apply, and this will be attached to the disk. So we'll discard those changes. So some additional settings you may want to do in here, because we have attached a disk, but editing and modifying these disks are important as well. Let's say we want to increase the size or adjust the throughput of the disk, or maybe even upgrade it a tier. You would click into the disk either from directly with the VM or actually in the disks view at the top by searching disks, and you can go within there. And you will land on this page here. Now, by expanding settings to the left, you can choose size and performance. What you will see here then is the different tiers of performance based on the storage type. So we've chosen storage type HDD. So, local spinning disk, locally redundant, what we provision initially. You will see the performance and the throughputs that are coming out of this. Now, let's say we wanted to improve this and increase it to, say, a premium SSD. You'll notice the upgrades in performance and the requirements that come with this. So this is important to understand because, again, we have to look at the limitations potentially on your virtual machine to whether it can support it, right? If we got like a B2MS, like a B series, and you come in and you slap, a 4 terabyte or P50 drive on here, and you're expecting 7500 IO, it's likely not going to happen, right? You're going to get throttled based on the virtual machine itself. So we'll keep it, say, 4 gigs just as an example. Actually, let's bring it up to 32. And you're going to notice this custom disk size at the bottom. So this is if you need to maybe tweak the size of the disk being attached to the OS. So while use cases may be limited, let's say the operating system only supports X amount of disk space, or you don't want to give them any more disk space, but you want to increase their performance tier, right? So let's say in this case, you wanted to have a performance tier of a P20, so 2300 IO and 150 megabits a second, the equivalent of a 512, but only provision of 32. You can do that. Now, the caveat here is you're going to be paying for a P20 disk. So there are very limited use cases in where you may want to do this. Usually it's going to be some form of limitation on the virtual machine or the application you're trying to run. So then you need to find a way to attach a disk, but still provide the throughput required. Now, a quick side note, the premium SSD V2s allows you to decouple this, and you can actually set your performance and IO exclusive from the storage amounts, and that modifies pricing slightly. So there is a little bit of a benefit if you require high IO, high transaction, and low storage to maybe look at the V2s. But there are some additional limitations on the V2s based on where they can be assigned and how they're connected. And a lot of times they have to be spun up net new with the VM to ensure they're in the proper zone redundant models. But that's something you can explore in a different video. Focusing on today, this is where we would make our adjustments. Now, one final thing I'd like to say: your standard and your standard practices, your HDD and SSD, these disks are subject to storage transaction charges. Now, flipping between these back and forth may actually impact your overall invoice by increasing the storage transactions because it is going to physically move that data to cheaper disks. Theoretically, the reality is a lot of it is likely living on a SAN and it's just tagged accordingly. So I always give the caveat that you might have a small increase in storage transaction charges during these moves up and down. I haven't really seen them come in. And quite honestly, the storage transaction charges, you get like 10 million storage transactions for, I think it's like $2 Canadian. So it's very, very minimal. So the cost savings to maybe downgrade to a lower tier was probably far outweigh the actual potential storage transaction charges. So I'd say keep that in mind, but don't lose sleep over it, right? It'll be such a negligible amount. It was almost not worth mentioning, but for transparency's sake, I like to bring that up. So that's pretty much it. You want to edit your disks. And then one final thing, actually, I'll put up here, and we'll call this kind of general maintenance and cleanup. Under your disks, it's always important every couple of months to come in and sort by owner to see what sort of disks you have allocated to the infrastructure. Anything missing an owner means it is not assigned, which means it's a cost drain at this point. Unless you're keeping this around for some form of archiving purposes or auditing purposes, you most likely want to purge these disks. So this was the one I was showing how to attach earlier, and since we didn't actually accept it, it is not being managed by a virtual machine, which means it is an orphan disk. Just picture a drive sitting on a shelf somewhere. So with that in mind, if you're not sure, you can go and attach this to a virtual machine previously, as I had shown. Take a look, see what's on it. If you don't need it, you come in and you delete the disk. So some common ways this may have happened is early virtual machines, or when you're setting up a virtual machine, there's a checkbox of when this is removed, do you want to remove all associated resources, right? If that wasn't set and someone goes to purge a VM, it leaves this disk behind. Virtual machine backups and recoveries. So when you do an Azure backup, it creates a disk for you, right? That's how you recover your data. You need to clean those disks up a lot of times. So if there was a recovery or a restore or a snapshot swap and you created a disk from snapshot, it could very well be sitting here in an orphan state. So we want to make sure that this stuff is cleaned up so you do not pay, because regardless of whether this is being used or not, you are not paying a cent, or sorry, you were still paying. You're not paying for storage transactions, but you're paying to keep the lights on for a dead disk. So that's the quick and dirty run through. Hopefully this is of help. I do get this question quite a bit of, I need to expand drive size. I need to grow. What do I do? Just picture this like going into your Hyper-V or VMware and expanding space, or throwing more disks into an array and expanding out your RAID array. Very straightforward. It all comes in as like an iSCSI target. So as far as your operating system is concerned, it's just another disk has showed up. You attach a drive letter, you share it out like you normally would. Changing performance tiers, adjusting the disks in the back end in Azure does not affect how your computer manager sees that disk. So you don't have to worry about going from, say, a standard to a premium and having to rebuild your shares or remap your LUNs or whatever. It just updates its performance and you're good to go. So I hope this is helpful for you. And with that, we'll catch you next time.